It's my touchscreen. It is not working. You used it. You used my computer.
You know we're live, right? Okay. So hello, everybody. I see that we have quite a few people already hopping on to the live stream, and it's great to see everybody here. We just finished up with a group practice session, and the theme was about favorite vacations, and I had a really great group, and we were really appreciative of everybody that was able to join that practice session. If you happen to miss the practice group, we're actually we send out invitations via our newsletters and also through to all of our members. So if you haven't been able to join, feel free to go ahead and sign up for our newsletters. They're free, and we left a link in the description down below. And tonight we're actually going to be talking about how you can become fluent in sign language more quickly, and actually be highlighting actually a book that I just read last night that I really thought was very succinct and was really great. So I'll be touching on that a little bit later. And also we're going to be doing another giveaway this evening. We're going to be giving away your choice of either a 30-minute one-on-one session or a signed copy of our children's book. This guy right here, if the camera will focus. So this is a children's book we wrote earlier this year. And if you win, then you can choose between either a free session or our children's book. Although for the book, it's going to be U.S. only. I know we have a lot of people that are joining us from other countries. We have people from Japan and Australia, Canada. If you're in one of those other countries, then we'll just go ahead and give you the free session. If you are here in the United States, then you'll have the choice. So I just want to go ahead and say hello to everybody. And yeah, actually, I think we're going to do the 50 likes thing again. So once we hit 50 likes on the video, we'll go ahead and pick a winner at that point. So let's see here. We have Jerry saying hello. We have Abigail. And we have Cindy, Yuletta, Madison. Great to see all of you. Leslie, such a great chat session. Just realized I forgot the name of the person I was with in the room. Yeah, sometimes that happens. But I'm glad you had a great session. Hi, Shmiva. Did I get that right? Kim saying thank you so much for your time and effort hosting the practice sessions and the YouTube sessions. It's really our pleasure to be able to provide that kind of facilitation to where you can network with other people. I know it's really tough trying to learn a new language, especially when everybody is in isolation. So those Zoom sessions can be really helpful to be able to network and find others that are learning sign language with you. Mary says, hey. Sophia says, hey. Jenna says, hi. How's everything going, Mary? Everything's going pretty good. Glad to see so many people joining us this evening. Felicia says hi. Bailey says hi. And wow, so many comments, and I don't think we're going to be able to get to everybody. Jason and Jane.
Can you go through
we see some of you have already liked the video. Wow, we're already up to 25. Keep it going, guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into the subject matter tonight. Oh, one thing I did want to mention too is I wanted to thank everybody that are supporters of us, either on Patreon or here on YouTube. And we actually have some new perks coming your way. So for those of you that are at the support level, we're going to be giving you early access to all of the videos that we produce. You have exclusive discounts on like the merchandise and sessions and stuff like that. And also we plan on doing exclusive live streams that are for members only in the future. And so you can look forward to that. For those that are on the VIP level, you already have access to 33 exclusive videos through an entire playlist. And then also we have, we'll be releasing some of the classes that we just wrapped up with the 7-day challenge. So we have 7 classes, and we're going to be uploading those going forward. So you'll be able to have that to look forward to. And we created something new, and this is something I'm pretty excited about. We created a third tier level that's called courses. And so in the past few months, we've held 3 courses so far, a 7-day ASL bootcamp, a 30-day crash course, and a 7-day challenge that we just finished. So we're going to make all 3 of those courses available for free at that tier level of courses. And that's going to be available to anybody here on YouTube or anybody that signs up for that tier level on Patreon. So becoming fluent faster. So one of the things I wanted to actually touch on is a book I just went through last night. And one of the things I like to do is I subscribe to a Kindle Unlimited. So I like to just burn through books. And you might not know this about me, but I'm a really avid reader, and I go through about 50 to 100 books every year. And so one of the books I came across was this one. Hopefully it turns up on camera. I don't know if it's going to do it. But this is actually a book by Rochelle Barlow, and it's called Learning Signing Essentials in 30 Days. And it's American Sign Language for Beginners. So this is actually a really good place to start. She touches on a lot of interesting subjects and, things that you should probably know before you even start day one. And I was actually going to just pull a couple things from this because I thought it was really interesting. One thing is that she says that I believe in the power of practice. So each day you'll find an activity to help that day's lesson stick. So she has it set up to where you can go through it day 1, day 2, day 3, and it goes all the way to day 30. And interestingly enough, like grammar, it doesn't get introduced into rather late into that program. I think it's like day 22 or 23 where she starts introducing grammar. And even then it's kind of at a simplistic form. And then she goes into more detail as you go through the book. And so I just thought it was a really interesting way that was structured. And one of the hard things about sign language books in particular, and I've gone through about a dozen of them, is that sometimes the signs can be hit and miss. What you doing? Oh, you're going to go back to the title?
Yeah, somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So, no, wait, I can do it down
Oh, I see.
Can I do it down here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Keep talking.
Yeah, and actually, all the books that I'm going to be mentioning tonight, I have already linked in the description down below. So if you go down, and it's free with Kindle Unlimited. So if you already have it, it's free to download, which is really cool. If you don't have it, you can actually download a free trial, and I have a link for that down in the description down below too. And if you're down in the description, it's called ASL for Beginners under like free with Kindle Unlimited. So I have a few books in that section. And like I said, like if you have it, man, it's a great way to kind of burn through a lot of information in a short amount of time. So anyways, yeah, so that's a really great structure. And she touches on some subjects that I think are really nice to know before you even get started. Like a lot of the things that we talk about is like, it's important to have the right mindset, and it's important to have like habits, which if we have time, we'll try to touch on later on in the live stream. But she talks about like the 5 parameters. And this is something that you may or may not have learned already, but we memorized it years ago as HOLME, HOLME. And it's basically an acronym to help you memorize the 5 parameters: hand shape, orientation or your palm orientation, location, movement, and non-manual markers. And we learned it back in the day with either expressions or, and there's another E that I always forget. Oh, emotion. Expressions or emotions, but it's basically things that aren't actually part of the sign that give a sign added meaning. So it's one that like I would really recommend you, if you haven't picked up like a sign language book yet and you're still in the beginning stages, that's a really good kicking off point, because the signs too is something that you kind of have to be a little cautious about with ASL dictionaries, because there's a lot of them, and I've gone through about a dozen of them, and some are better than others. And hers is really spot on. And one of the things that I appreciate about that one in particular is that she talks about regionalizations pretty early on in the book, before day one. Because one of the things that we kind of have to keep in mind is that sign language is incredibly diverse. And ASL is also very diverse as well. And it has regionalization. So many signers on the East Coast of the United States sign a little differently than those that are on the West Coast.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm going to give you an example of that. It's one of our most popular examples because we always ask people, how do you sign, and I can't see you, but how do you sign pizza? How did you learn how to sign that? How did you sign it? Where we're from Southern California, we learned how to sign pizza like this. Double Z's. Pizza. Okay. Years and years of signing this. Pizza, 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 pizza. I moved to Central California and I signed pizza. That's how I signed it. I was talking with one of my clients and she's like, oh, I'm so excited because today I'm going to go and buy, and she does this. And I'm like, what is that? I said, what is that? And she looks at me like I'm stupid. She's like, pizza? And I'm like, you mean pizza? She goes, what is that? And I'm like, I asked you first. I'm like, what was that? So she had never seen my pizza. I had never seen her pizza. And here in Central California, they sign it pizza. I don't like this sign. It hurts my wrist. But they sign it pizza. And so that's an example of signs, the variations of signs on how you sign certain things.
Somebody wants more cupcakes.
You want to help her?
Sure. I want to go through some of the comments.
So it's just one of those things that, there's these variations of signs, and sometimes we kind of get stuck with the whole, it's like one way or nothing. No, that's so not true. Not in sign language. There is no one right way. There's such a variation. The double Z to an A. Oh yeah. Pizza. I've seen. Yeah. Pizza. It's interesting to see these variations in the language. I'm trying to think of other examples of that. Other examples of variations. Pizza is like one of the most popular variation, but it's one of those things that we try not to get stuck in our own mind. When we're learning sign language, you might learn something one way, and then you see somebody else do it a different way. Sometimes our go-to is, that's not right. Well, that's not how I learned it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, because they probably learned it a different way depending on where they live. And Chris is right. From East Coast versus West Coast, there are significant differences in the way they sign. And even for a different country that uses ASL, the ASL that they use, even though it's the same ASL, their signs are going to be different. There's going to be variations. So making sure that we stay open-minded and flexible to that, knowing that sometimes things will be different, and that's okay. And not kind of getting stuck in our one way of signing, because that tends to happen a lot. Yeah, Halloween and Christmas, there's a lot of variations. Yeah, Halloween. I mean, there's just, ugh. And somebody said, what did they say? So, I only know 3 or 4 ways to sign Halloween, but somebody said there's 10?
So I recently watched a video, and if you're not familiar with them, ASL Connect is a really good resource. It's a free resource that Gallaudet puts out. After the live stream, I'll throw a link down in the description too, but it's gallaudet.edu and then /ASL Connect. But anyways, it's a free version of basic lessons. And so on YouTube, they have a channel too. And so they're like, hey, here's 8 ways to sign Halloween. And we've been interpreting for, a long time, and we've been in the deaf community for even longer. We've come across maybe 4 or 5 variations. But yeah, 8, it's crazy. This was a new one for me.
That's new for me too. I didn't know that.
So Halloween. And yeah, like then there's Halloween, and they had a few others that I'll have to go back and rewatch it. But yeah, what was the other one? Oh, Christmas there's a lot of different variations.
Birthday.
I don't like that one.
But that's how some people sign. They sign birthday, even though it's kind of weird, But yeah, birthday. There's a lot of variations in signs, and so that's not one of the things that we definitely want to keep in mind too when we are learning for sure. Does anybody have any questions or anything like you want to drop in the chat that you want us to kind of like to talk about? Because that's one of the things we love about doing this is like last week. Oh my God, we just like blew up with like these questions like, what about this? What about this? What about that? So feel free to like ask any questions in the chat, and we will for sure, respond. If we miss it, drop it in there again, because I try really hard to like keep up with everything. Somebody says in Philly, the sign for birthday is tugging on your ear. Huh!
That's a new one for us too.
How do you sign amusement park? Well, it depends on the amusement park. So, for example, you have Six Flags. You have, which here we go again with the variations, Disneyland. So I've seen Disneyland. I've seen there's another one. I don't remember what it was. Anyways,
sorry, pay attention. What were you saying?
Oh, Disneyland.
I know there's one by the chin.
Disneyland. Thank you. But yeah, there's all kinds of variations depending on which amusement park you're talking about or which theme park you're talking about. I almost did theme park. I caught myself before I did it. Yes, I almost did theme park. That is wrong.
Like a theme of an essay. Or...
Don't ever do this and say theme park. It's like air quotes.
Did you already display this one? American Sign Language for Beginners, Learning Signing Essentials in 30 Days. And yeah, that's by, she goes by ASL Rochelle or Rochelle ASL, but her full name's Rochelle Barlow.
Somebody says.
This is a really interesting, the member one?
Yeah.
So a member, it looks like you already are a member. And on YouTube, it's really easy. There's a blue join button, and then those three tiers open up. Support, VIP, and then courses. So support is basically early access and a few exclusive live streams. The VIP, you have an entire playlist of exclusive classes and workshops that we've done over the months, and some other videos. And the third one is courses, where you can take advantage of the full 3 courses that we've done so far. And this is a really interesting question that I want to touch on. Do all English language says counties, but I think you meant countries, use a variation of ASL?
No. And I'll tell you, so you go to France, they speak French, but they also speak English there too. But they don't sign ASL, they sign French. Each country has their own variation of sign language. Very few use ASL, and it'd be like the same ASL here in the US, but they each have, there's over what, 6?
It depends on where you look, but like some sources will be like 120, whereas other ones is 300 over.
Yeah, 300 over, like different variations of sign language.
Different sign languages.
And a lot of people, that was kind of like the issue that people thought too. They think that sign like ASL is universal, and it's not. Each country has its own language, and each country has its own sign language, but sometimes you will find ASL there. It just depends on the country. I don't know which ones. I think Belize uses ASL. What's that country called? We have friends that go down there all the time.
Dominican Republic.
Thank you. And the DR, they use ASL. So it kind of depends, but yeah, it does have a variation there.
Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on too is that English-speaking countries, like I'm thinking of Australia and England, Britain, United States, Canada, so like let's just take Britain for example. So they have their own sign language, British Sign Language, BSL. Australia, I believe, also has their own sign language, Australian Sign Language. Canada is an exception. They do use predominantly ASL, but they also have other sign languages too. Quebecan Sign Language, and also Inuit Sign Language. And then, of course, like the other two variations of ASL, like PSE and C Sign. Let's see here. Do you guys know more than one sign language? Fluently, no. ASL is our go-to sign language. We definitely know various modes. We're very comfortable with like PSE, and we know quite a good chunk of C sign, kind of how to add the prefixes and suffixes, but it's kind of hard to get really comfortable with that when not a lot of people use it anymore. And little tidbits of sign languages here and there, like Japanese sign language, nice to meet you, where they bow to each other. Spanish sign language, like some like religious signs of like Dios, D for Dios, ¿Cómo estás? CE, ¿Cómo estás? Cerveza was like popping the top of the beer cap off. Esposo, esposa is the same. But yeah, like over the years, you kind of learn little bits and pieces of it. I have some friends of ours memorized alphabets from other sign languages. I think, was it Kiki that memorized the Swedish sign language, where they use two hands for their alphabet, and it's pretty crazy. But yeah, there's tons of sign languages out there, and it's really interesting. But just like English for verbal languages, ASL is pretty much the most common, but it's by far not the only one. Let's see here. This is kind of an interesting question. Dione is asking, I was told that I should use fingerspelling as a last result. Yes and no. Very dependent upon the circumstances. Sometimes you want to do both, just to clarify that you're signing what they want you to sign. This is very common in education, where kids are being graded on vocabulary, right? And like, let's say they're in a science class, and the kid has to learn how to spell and recognize a sign for like photosynthesis, and usually it's I can't see it. Photosynthesis is the most common way that I've seen it in most like high schools and colleges. But like they could be, sun processing, and there might be a little ambiguity there and some vagueness. And so finger spelling photosynthesis can really help really clarify that is what you wanted to say. And on the flip side of that coin, you don't want to finger spell everything. Imagine having an English conversation where instead of just using words, you had to spell out every word that you wanted to use in a sentence, and that's not a way to have a conversation. So definitely, there's pros and cons to finger spelling, and so definitely some do's and don'ts. Do you guys do this every day, as far as using sign language and teaching and interpreting? That we do every day. Live streams and stuff like this we do weekly. We facilitate Zoom practice sessions for others to get together and practice. Oh, look like you're getting ready to leave.
I'm just moving.
Yeah, so the chat's starting to speed up, so bear with us. Oh, interesting. Okay. Antoinette is saying that we use ASL in Trinidad and Tobago along with Trinidad and Tobago Sign Language. Yeah, I was speaking with somebody from Dubai recently, and that really, it was interesting because they have a real struggle with
oh my God,
so many sign languages.
You can deal with it. I've told her many times.
Okay. Oh man.
My daughter just now walked in, her hands covered in frosting, white frosting, just covered, and it's on her face. And I'm like, she got in to the frosting. I've told her so many times, so like I look over and she's just like white. You can take care of it. I can't. I've told her too many times. Anyway, I don't know what he was talking about, so I like missed it. But anyways, are the Zoom practice sessions free? Yes. So every Wednesday night we do a Zoom practice session, and they are free. Like Chris was saying, you have to be a part of the newsletter, the emails, to get sent the link. Due to issues that we had about a month ago, we had to make those really like private. So there are ways to get in, but you have to be a part of that, like the VIP, the newsletters and things like that, if you want to do that. How do you sign Spain? How do you sign Spain? I've seen many different signs. I learned it as Spain. It's like an X and it goes. That's how I learned it. I'm sure there's variations. I know one country, the way we sign their I can't even remember which country it was, but my friend went and she's like, oh yeah, we sign, I'll use the example of Spain. We sign at Spain, and they were like, that's not how we sign our country. And it's interesting. So for here, for what I've learned, it's Spain. So it's an X and it goes flip like this, Spain. But that's how I learned it. I'm sure there's variations, there's other ways, but for me, that's how I've signed it. Go down. Is Spanish sign language more universal than ASL? I don't know that. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and Spanish language kind of has the same thing too, where their Spanish sign language is different depending on what country you're talking about. Like Spain has their own sign language. Mexico has its own sign language. Bolivia has its own sign language. Argentina has its own sign language.
Bolivia?
Sorry, I throwing a lot of countries at you.
Bolivia. I know how to sign some of them, but I think it's Bolivia. I think so.
Yeah, and there's like Paraguayan sign language. And so there's tons of variations, or not necessarily variations, but there's lots of independent and, just sign languages that are really just country-based and not necessarily language-based, if that makes sense. Like English, right? There's ASL and BSL, Australian Sign Language, but they're all kind of based off of the English language. But each country kind of has their own sign language. And same thing with Spanish, where it's more country dependent. And some countries will have multiple sign languages, like the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where Dubai is at, and they're talking about it was difficult because they have Indian, Pakistan, Emirates sign language. Did I say Indian sign language? Yeah. ASL, and a couple others. And that was different for me because usually, like France, most people speak French Sign Language or use French Sign Language. America, it's predominantly ASL. But there are some countries where there's multiple sign languages, and it can be really confusing for those that are just want to communicate, and they kind of have to figure out, okay, well, what sign language do you use? Here's an easy one. Isn't ASL based a lot off of French Sign Language? Yep.
Hold on, I just saw somebody who asked a question, and now it's gone. I saw your question. Oh, no, there it is. I see it now. Nope, I lost it again. Nope, there you are. Yeah. Do you need to be advanced to join Zoom? No. We have 4 different levels that we try to accommodate, and it's like new, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So we do accommodate for those 4 different skill levels. So you don't have to be advanced to be there. The VIP includes a 7-day challenge as well as practice sessions.
Okay, so the 7-day challenge is technically finished, but we have all of the classes and the recordings and the videos available. So typically when we do a course, it will do a mix of resources from a varied amount of resources. Like we'll include resources from like Bill Vickers and ASL Meredith and ASL that and ASL Duo and a lot of different resources, and we'll just kind of hone in on like a certain topic. So that way you're learning not, just how I learned it, but, from a variety of, deaf instructors primarily. And then we'll take that topic and we'll use it for a group practice session. So then we'll do the same thing that we typically do for the free sessions, where you'll be paired off in small groups and put into practice what you've learned. Via those resources, we'll incorporate like challenges, and we have like a Facebook component where you can go in and network with other students, and you can participate in like daily challenges, and those will be dependent. So like a lot of that stuff is still there. And then we'll also do a class. So for the 7-day ASL boot camp, that was actually 2 classes a day. It was really intense. And so we had a morning class that went into details about kind of how to make the process of language learning a lot more efficient, a lot more less stressful, and more successful. And then in the evenings, it was a lot of Q&As where we took on a lot of questions and answered them. The 30-day crash course is very similarly structured, except it's over a longer period of time. And then the 7-day challenge has that similar structure, to where we had a class about language learning. We had resources to help you learn the language itself. Then we had those practice sessions. So the practice sessions aren't there anymore because those have come and gone, but everything else that were a part of those courses are still there and intact and available for you to go back to anytime you need to.
Okay.
Good reminder, Diane. She says, don't forget to like everyone. Looks like we're at 36. We're looking for 50 before we do the giveaway.
What is considered Nunu? So Nunu would be somebody who like just recently learned like their alphabet, knows really like basic, like here's my name, I'm gonna finger spell it, sort of. So like if you're brand new, then that's kind of what that means. I
was just reading this one here. Whoops, I missed. I met a deaf person today, but I drew a blank when I tried to sign my name.
That's a sweater.
Has this ever happened to both of you? Did you forget signs when you met a more advanced signer?
What? Okay, hold on. I met a deaf person today and drew a blank when I tried to sign my name. Has this ever happened to both of you? Did you forget signs when you met a more advanced signer? Yes. So it happens a lot of times. Especially if you're new and you're so excited and you meet a deaf person for the first time and you want to use what you've learned, but you're so excited, your nerves take over, and then your mind just goes boop, and like your signs are gone. They're gone. And you're like, I know they're there. It happens. It's okay. Eventually you'll kind of get past that. It does take time. But yeah, just I always try to tell people, try to just, take a breath, have confidence in what you know. You know what you know, have confidence in that, and it'll be okay. Just, yeah, it'll be fine.
And it's not just you; it happens.
It happens
all of us.
to everyone.
And definitely in the beginning, because those stress levels are so high, and even like when you're, I don't know, like maybe you're interested in somebody and you want to ask them to dance, or you want to ask them out for a date, and then like all of a sudden you forgot how to formulate a sentence, right? And so that's definitely a thing that happens to all of us. Like we're really nervous, right? And especially if somebody is really advanced, whether it's a deaf person that we've never met before, or maybe somebody that's really skilled and we just aren't there yet. And yeah, it can be nerve-wracking, and it's really common to forget everything you've learned. So don't beat yourself up about it, and just keep going. It does get better.
Do you two have ASL names? So sign names? Yes, we do. So my sign name is JM because my name is Johnny May. So my sign name is JM, and his sign name is Chris. It's a C across. And most of the time, if you're unfamiliar with how you get a name sign, that is given to you by the deaf. They will give you that by some characteristic about you that they like or that they think is funny or something that's unique to you. They'll give you that name sign. And it's a wonderful privilege to be given that, because you're like, it's something only a deaf person can give you. It's not like you can decide, I'm going to name myself and I want my sign name to be whatever. No, a deaf person, they'll name you. And so it's really a lot of fun. For us, like for example, my sign name is JM, because when we were, as I'm sure you can tell, expressions are not a problem for me. It's pretty easy for me to express myself with my face. If I'm happy, you know it. If I'm mad, you know it. If I'm annoyed, you know. So we were we had been learning for a while, a few months, and one of our friends who we met, who was deaf, we had been like socializing and hanging out with for a while. Something happened, and I don't even remember what it was like. Something happened, and I didn't like what happened. Like over there, and I saw something, and my reaction to that, without saying anything, because again, I don't play poker for obvious reasons, I was like, but that my eyebrow, I can do them both. I can move both of them. Well, it was so distinct to our deaf friend when he saw it. It was just like, he was like, wow, because it like shot up real quick, and he thought it was funny, and he's like, oh, your face, you're just so he named me JM because of my eyebrows, because I do that. Whereas this one, he does this thing, he's very expressive with his eyebrows too. He does things that I can't do. I can't figure out, I think I almost did it. His eyebrows go up in like a different way. But like he goes like really like different things, and he was messing around, they were all having fun, and our same deaf friend saw him do it and thought it was so funny because his eyebrows were like ding, 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 ding. And so he named him Chris. So there's I have one friend who has a freckle on the white part of her eye. It's the coolest thing. And they named her this for that freckle. I mean, so I have another friend. Her sign name is like this. So cool. Coolest name sign. Ding, 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 ding. She loves photography. Neat, right? So there's so many cool things out there. There's so many name signs and stuff out there. Very unique, special to you. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Sorry I'm late, but I'm here now.
Hey, that's my grandmother's name. I've never met another Johnny May. Yep. Johnny was my aunt's name, my great aunt's name, and May was my grandmother's middle name. So they pieced it together. So it's kind of cool. My family's Southern. What's going?
I had my eyes on this one right here.
Which one?
So who decides the new signs for something like coronavirus and when new words come?
So who decides to make those signs? The deaf do.
Yeah.
The deaf will decide. And like when coronavirus started, I was curious. I was like, this will be interesting. I want to see, because I was finger spelling it. COVID. Finger spelling. Then one day when I was at work before they shut the world down, my deaf client signed COVID. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. She's like, look it up. And the deaf, was it from the east?
It was pretty quick.
It was
like
fast.
They were seeing the images of the coronavirus itself. So, I mean, we've all seen it at this point. It's a ball with like a bunch of spikes at the end of it. And so that sign came together pretty quickly and like unanimously kind of clicked within the community. There is one video that I would recommend watching, and it goes into more detail about kind of the evolution.
Hey, get down now.
The evolution of sign language and how like new terminology and vocabulary is learned. But it's from the YouTube channel Verge Science, and it's they do this interview with Jeff Porley, and you might have actually seen like.
Get down.
Come here, baby. No. Yeah.
Working from home. Working from home. My daughter. You want to set her up? Sorry. Oh, thank you. She is also learning sign language too. But yeah. Do you have a video on? Sorry, I don't know what he was going to talk to you about. I don't have knowledge of, so I can't add on what he was saying. Oh, he's back. Okay. I'm like, I can't add on to your YouTube channel thing because I've never seen it.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because they interviewed this undergraduate that's a deaf scientist going into like microbiology. And he was just kind of venting in frustration, like, for me to have a conversation, it takes forever because like those terms are just huge. And at the time, there were no signs for those terms. And so the entire video kind of goes into how how the process kind of goes naturally. And typically, multiple signs exist for a certain thing. And over time, the deaf community kind of as a whole will tend to mainstream one sign over another. Jeff Porley was just saying like how sign language is kind of like this meritocracy where like the best sign wins. And it's an open discussion up until like a point, and, signs still change and evolve. One really popular, not popular, but, really common sign for family is with the F handshake, right? But you'll probably start seeing this more and more. Culture was done with a C and now it's done like this. And you'll see kind of that evolution of sign language kind of keeping up with the times and constantly evolving, like the sign for phone, right? That's changed over the years. It used to be like calling on a phone, but a lot of times we're just kind of scrolling on our phones, right? And some of it's context based. But yeah, it's just...
example, who versus who. I learned it as who. Once upon a time, a long time ago. Who. Signs change all the time. They change and adapt. New signs, new things. I don't know how they sign it. I don't know. But in English, my niece, hold on, how old is she? She's 13. She was talking with us and she's like, oh, and then they were like totally throwing shade at her. And I'm like, that's not what I thought she said at first.
Throwing what?
I didn't. I was like, what did you say? And she's like, they were like totally throwing shade. And I'm like, okay, so you said shade. And I'm like, what does that even mean? I'm like, what does that even mean? My brother-in-law laughed. He thought it was funny. And I'm like, don't laugh, tell me. I'm like, because I'm like imagining this. And I'm like, it just didn't make sense. Well, apparently it's the same as how we used to say you're raining on somebody's parade. It's the same thing. Oh, totally throwing shade at them. Oh, you totally like rain on their parade. But all the young ones are probably like laughing. Oh, I know. I'm sure. But like they were like, oh yeah, totally throw shade. And I'm like, my God. So terminology, things evolve, For example, like nope, I can't give you an example. But anyways, like how my parents and my grandparents used to talk, terminology has changed. Sign language is the same. It changes, it evolves over time. So it's constantly learning, like God, I know the English language, but I didn't know what throwing shade meant. Same thing. That was funny. I was curious how you're going to sign that. Well, it's a weird, like I said, I don't know how to sign that. Throwing shade or like whatever. I don't know. But that. So it's like it evolves. I'm
glad they think our daughter is cute, jumping on the couch back here. Hey, we are almost at 50. It looks like we're at 44.
44, close.
Where was it? Here we go. Do you guys sign things differently than each other, especially with your different professions?
Yeah. So if you notice, like, me, if I'm signing or if I'm interpreting and he's interpreting at the same time, you'll notice we're not interpreting the exact same way. So I might sign something a little differently based on my perspective of it. He might sign a little differently based on his perspective, but the meaning is still the same. You know what we're saying. And if you see it interpreted, a deaf person would understand and they would know. We gave this example before, but there was 3 interpreters. Charlie, there was 3 interpreters. And they were brought out to interpret that rap song. Was it Black and Yellow?
Yeah.
They had to interpret that rap song, Black and Yellow. And those 3 interpreters were signing it at the exact same time. But each one of them was signing it differently. But it meant the same thing. So, yeah, you can sign it differently. You can throw a different sign out there, or I'm not really good with the words when it comes to saying stuff like this, but like,
context, semantic meaning.
Yeah, it's like it means the same thing, even though we're not signing it the exact same way. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, think of all the ways that we used to say cool, right? Like, oh, that was far out, that was psychedelic, that was neat, that was and that kind of changes and evolves over the years, and that's totally natural. And look at the English language from like 300-400 years ago. It's totally a different language. Try reading Shakespeare from 400 years ago. It's tough, right?
I had to read Julius Caesar for college. Ugh. I'm like, what does that even mean? My professor, he's so awesome. He had the what do you call it? The English, like our modern day English grammar next to it. So we were able to like read it and like understand simultaneously. But yeah.
Jelly just said psychedelic.
I'm like, how do you spell that? Psychedelic. Yeah. It's just I lost my thought. But yeah, so it evolves, it changes over time. So we can see like sign language, it does change and evolve over time. But it is really it is interesting.
No ASL Fakers was asking, when you're interpreting, are you interpreting into ASL or signing verbatim as in C? I only ask because I'm deaf.
Yes, thank you.
So usually it depends on like the conversation, but normally I will tend to be more ASL and sometimes PSE if I need to be more structured like that way. Normally it's more education when I interpret more PSE. Very rarely like C sign, like if a student is expected to copy a sentence off the board and they need to know like exactly like what they need to write, like word for word, and then I'll go ahead and sign that.
All right, I fixed it.
Sign that word for word. Poor baby.
Anyway. Oh yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
real
PSC,
quick.
ASL. I know. Before we were more ASL, but over time it changed when I moved, because in our area a lot of the deaf were PSE, and so I like had to learn to like be flexible and kind of bounce. I like venture on the PSE, where he is more ASL. But yeah. I'm happy.
Oh, good. Somebody was asking about what PSE is, and Squirt answered, Pigeon to sign English. It's ASL signs, but following a more English structure. Great summary.
Yeah.
I like this question. How do you define fluent?
I don't like that question.
I like that question because sometimes it's a mindset thing. So, like if you look up fluency, you'll see like, you need to know 10,000 words, or you need to know like X amount of words, right? Is sometimes how they measure fluency. Other ways they'll measure fluency is they have 6 tiers where they'll have like, okay, you're at 3A, 3B, and then you kind of work your way up the system. But like the way I kind of like to define fluency is, are you comfortable and are you able to have a conversation fluently? So that depends on what you tend to talk about. And so like when you go to learn a new language, you really want to focus on what you want to talk about. Because I could be completely fluent in, astrophysics, but for me to have a conversation with somebody else in astrophysics, it can be really tough to have that conversation. And like my everyday conversation isn't fluent because I don't know, basic things, right? So when you're learning a new language and you want to become fluent, you need to become fluent in what it is that you want to talk about. So really kind of identify what it is that you want to, or you tend to talk about the most. Think about your day-to-day conversations, your conversations with your family, your conversations with your friends, your conversations at work. And they might vary a little bit depending on who you're with, but focusing on what it is that you want to talk about, that can really increase the speed at which you can become fluent. I've mentioned that Chris Lonsdale quite a bit. He has a great TED Talk. It's got a few million views on it, How to Become Fluent in 6 Months.
Oh, that wasn't right.
Yeah. And anyways, he talks about if you can become 98% fluent with only knowing about 3,000 words per se in English. And that's basically because in everyday language, we tend to use the same words over and over again. And they're called high frequency words. And if you go into like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, what are the kids learning? They're learning high frequency words. And so most of those are pretty basic, like how are you? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling bad. What do you want to eat for lunch? And, real basic things like that. But then once you get past like those basics of letters and numbers and colors and, animals, meals and stuff like that, then you kind of have to think about what it is that you tend to want to talk about and then learn that next. And that can really help you become fluent faster. Here's a real quick one. How do you sign school? Does Jamaica have their own sign language?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not sure.
Know.
Worth a Google. I've been to Jamaica, but it was before we learned sign language, and can't answer that. Let's see here. We have we got somebody from Australia.
Cool.
It was actually really interesting.
Sorry.
I was going through some of the analytics of like the channel itself, and most of the people that watch like this kind of content are from like the United States and Canada. But one that really surprised me is how many people are watching this from Australia, and it's like a third. It's a lot. I thought that was kind of interesting. This is a really interesting question too. What are the benefits of ASL other than talking to deaf people? And there's tons of benefits. So if you're just learning any new language, that's a benefit because you're really exercising your brain, you're expanding your knowledge base, you're meeting new people, you're being more active, and like that's the kind of stuff that kind of really keeps you motivated. It keeps you learning new things, but also like teaching ASL or sign language to kids can really boost their cognitive levels too. And kids that learn sign language, even if they don't use it later in life, tend to develop verbal languages more quickly, are able to like just communicate more fluently, and they in the long run end up excelling better academically in schools as well. So it's really interesting. There's lots of benefits to learning sign language. There's really no downside, right? You might come across this quote, but like nobody has ever said, I regretted learning sign language. And, ask anybody that's learned it and ask them, do they regret it? And, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that says, I shouldn't have done it, because it's not something to regret. So definitely, if you're thinking about it, go ahead and jump on it and learn it.
somebody asked, why did we decide to learn sign language? Well, initially we started learning it through our church. And then my dad, he's hard of hearing. So when we always knew that my dad, you need to wait. We always knew that my dad was hard of hearing a little bit, but we didn't understand how bad. And so what happened was he went to the doctor and they told him eventually he would be fully deaf. And we were like, okay, we really need to learn sign language more fluently because we're going to have to communicate with my dad that way. And my dad's, when we learned that, he was 53. He was 53 when we learned that my dad was going to be fully deaf. And so we're like, okay. So we decided that's fine. And we kept going. So myself, Chris, we learned sign. Both my parents learned sign language. My niece is an interpreter. She learned sign language. My brother didn't. My sister, she has really good receptive skills. Her expressive are kind of so-so. My in-laws, they know sign language. My brother-in-law knows sign language. It's really cool. So but for us, we learned because we knew we were going to have to, that was going to be how we communicated with my dad. Because that's going to be the only way. And it was so funny because my parents, they didn't know sign language, then they were like, they didn't know. So after that, they started learning. They've been involved in the language now 8 years. 8 years now they've been involved in the language. And my dad went back to the doctor and the doctor was like, I'm so sorry. Your hearing is getting worse. You're going to be fully deaf. I'm so sorry. And my dad asked him, he's like, why are you apologizing to me? Why? And the doctor goes, because that's horrible. It's horrible to be deaf. And my dad's like, stop. My dad's like, there's nothing wrong with being deaf. He goes, I'm proud to be deaf. He goes, I've been involved in the deaf community. I've learned sign language and I accept it and I'm happy. And my dad, he was just like really straight. And the doctor was like shocked. He goes, oh, my dad's like, it's fine. It's fine. He's like, don't worry about it. And I was like, oh, Dad, you're so cute. Because my dad was like, no, stop. He was like, it's okay. I accept that I will be deaf and I'm happy about that. I can communicate. I'm fine. And so it was just, that was kind of like our motivation to keep learning sign language was for my dad. But yeah.
Oh, it was funny. Like some of his deaf friends were like, oh, you're going deaf? You're becoming deaf? Losing your hearing? Yes.
Yeah. Like a lot of our friends were like, hey, but yeah. I'm like reading, like all these like comments went, so I'm like trying to like read them all super fast.
Really quick, I saw somebody was asking, what does ASL stand for?
ASL?
Typically it's American Sign Language. Sometimes it's Arabic Sign Language, and sometimes it's Australian Sign Language.
But I think we're about wrapping it up. We're going to come to a close here pretty soon. So any last thoughts, comments, questions before we end it? I love seeing all your guys' like comments. It's been like super great. Coda.
What's a coda?
Okay, last question. Coda, what does that mean? It means child of deaf adult. So if like somebody was born deaf and they had children, their children were hearing, they are the child of a deaf adult. So super cool. We have a few interpreters that we work with who are codas. Really awesome. Love watching them sign because they're so good. So yeah.
If usually it's me that
I know. But okay.
Really appreciate you answering my questions.
Yeah, not a problem.
6 more likes. We came close tonight.
I know, we came close tonight.
45 right now. So maybe we can do it again next week. And for everything that we mentioned, I'll go ahead and add some of the things that's not in the description, like the video from Verge Science, which is really good. And yeah, so definitely check out some of the books. We didn't touch on a lot of things that I thought we would touch on this evening. But just a couple real quick things is like beyond just vocabulary, you know, one of the things that's really important to language learning is having the proper mindset, being motivated, and kind of avoiding perfectionism. That's a big thing that can really hold us back in many respects. Is a lot of times we don't want to use what we know until we have it down perfectly. But the less we worry about perfection and really just start aiming to just become better. And don't be afraid of those mistakes. And those mistakes end up being your best teachers. So definitely keep going at it. And we really wish everybody the best of luck and to be able to have a great night and really keep it going. And for those that we met for the Zoom session, like it was really great being able to see you this night. I can't talk tonight. That's good that we're ending it.
It's been one of those, yeah.
It's been one of those.
But yeah, it's been really good seeing, you know, all of you who are in the Zoom, and it was so good having you all here in the chat, seeing all your comments. It's like super awesome. I love it. So enjoy your night, enjoy your weekend coming up. Have fun, be safe, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.